Why time zones make no sense, and why the world agreed to this weird system. Section 1. The world where time breaks. Right now, somewhere on Earth, it's tomorrow. At this exact moment, one person is waking up for work, another is eating dinner, another is getting ready to sleep, and somewhere else, someone hasn't even reached that day yet. Same planet, same second, different day. And somehow we all accepted that as completely normal. But if you stop and think about it, time zones are actually one of the strangest systems humans ever created. Imagine boarding a flight and landing before you technically left. Imagine celebrating New Year's Eve twice. Imagine crossing an invisible line and suddenly changing the calendar without changing the weather, the language, the landscape, or even the people around you. That sounds broken, but it's completely real, because time, surprisingly, is far less natural than most of us think. And the strangest part is this. For most of human history, time zones didn't exist. No synchronized clocks, no standard hours, no global schedule, no universal time. For thousands of years, humans simply looked up. When the sun rose, the day began. When the sun reached its highest point, it was noon. When the sun disappeared, work ended. That was enough. And honestly, it worked. Because for most of history, people didn't travel very far. If your entire life happened within a small region, local time was all you needed. One town could call it noon. Another nearby town could also call it noon. Nobody cared if one was a few minutes different. There was no internet, no international business, no live television, no stock markets operating across continents, no one scheduling meetings across time zones. Time belonged to places, not to the world. Then humanity accidentally created a problem. We started moving too fast. At first, the change was gradual. Roads improved, trade expanded, cities became larger, travel became easier. But eventually, one invention arrived that completely broke the old system: railways. And suddenly, humanity discovered something uncomfortable. Time wasn't universal, it was local. And local time was becoming a disaster. Imagine standing in one city and your clock says exactly 12 o'clock. You travel to another nearby city. Their local clock says 11:56. Travel farther. Now it says 12:08. Travel again. It changes once more. That wasn't unusual. For most of history, every place followed its own version of time based on the sun. At first, that was inconvenient. Then railways arrived, and inconvenient became impossible. Because trains do not care about local traditions. Trains require schedules. Schedules require agreement. Agreement requires shared time. And suddenly humanity faced a question nobody expected. How do billions of people agree what time it actually is? That question ended up changing the entire world. Section 2. The day trains broke time. Before railways, different local times weren't really a problem. If one town's clock was a few minutes ahead of another, nobody cared. Travel was slow. Messages moved slowly. Most people lived and died close to where they were born. If you spent an entire day reaching another town, whether their noon happened 6 minutes earlier or later barely mattered. Time belonged to places. Then railways arrived. And suddenly humanity started moving faster than local time could handle. For the first time in history, people weren't traveling village to village anymore. They were moving across regions and entire countries on fixed schedules. That's when people discovered something strange. Time wasn't universal, it was local, and local time was becoming a disaster. Imagine running a railway company in the 1800s. A train leaves one city at exactly 12 o'clock. It reaches another city 50 minutes later. But according to the destination's local clock, it arrives at 12:03. Another train leaves somewhere else and somehow arrives earlier despite leaving later. Passengers miss connections. Schedules stop making sense. Now imagine trying to do this across hundreds of stations. This wasn't theoretical. In many places, nearby cities actually operated on different official times because every place followed the position of the sun. And there was a reason for that. Earth rotates roughly 360 degrees in about 24 hours. That means every degree of longitude creates about 4 minutes of time difference. 4 minutes doesn't sound important until you multiply it. Travel 15 degrees east and local solar time changes by roughly 1 hour. Across large countries, those differences became impossible to ignore. Railways exposed a problem humanity had accidentally hidden for thousands of years. There was no single correct time. Technically, every place had its own. One of the clearest examples came from Britain. Before standardization, towns followed their own local clocks. But railway operators realized trains couldn't safely run if every station used different time, so they started doing something unusual. They ignored local time. Instead, they adopted one shared reference. At first, this was mainly for railways, then businesses adopted it, then cities, then, eventually, everyone. And something quietly changed. For thousands of years, people looked at the sky to know time. Now, people started trusting clocks more than the sun. That sounds normal today, but at the time, it was revolutionary. Imagine someone telling you, yes, the sun looks highest right now, but officially, it's not noon. That required people to accept something completely new. Time was no longer purely natural. Time became coordinated. That single change transformed modern life. Because once countries standardized time inside their borders, a much bigger problem appeared. If countries now needed one shared time, how would the entire world agree? That single change transformed modern life. Because once countries standardized time inside their borders, a much bigger problem appeared. If countries now needed one shared time, how would the entire world agree? Section 3. The day the world divided time. By the late 1800s, humanity had created a strange situation. Inside countries, time was slowly becoming standardized. Railways were using common clocks. Businesses needed consistency. Communication was becoming faster. But globally, time was still chaos. That wasn't a problem when information moved slowly. If messages took weeks to arrive, nobody cared whether another city was using a different clock. Then the telegraph arrived. For the first time in history, information started moving faster than people. A message that once took days or months could suddenly arrive almost instantly. And suddenly, everyone needed to know exactly what time it was somewhere else. Imagine receiving a message that says, "Meeting starts at 10 o'clock." 10 o'clock where? Local time? Railway time? Which city? Which country? Humanity had connected the world before agreeing on the clock. So people started searching for a solution. The logic seemed simple. Earth rotates roughly once every 24 hours. Earth has roughly 360 degrees. Divide 360 by 24. You get 15 degrees. Each section becomes 1 hour. Problem solved. At least, that was the idea. But reality turned out to be messier. Because Earth doesn't care about politics, and politics doesn't care about geometry. If humans followed perfect mathematical time zones, countries would split awkwardly. Nearby cities would operate differently. Businesses would become inefficient. Daily life would become annoying. So humans did what humans usually do. We compromised. Countries started adjusting time zones to fit people, not mathematics. And that's why time zones today look strange. Some countries use one time zone, others use many. Some use offsets that aren't even full hours, some use half hours, some use quarter hours. And suddenly the clean mathematical model disappeared. One of the strangest examples is this. Theoretically, some large countries could have multiple time zones because of their geographic width. But some choose to use one. Meanwhile, other places use several. Not because science demands it, because people decided it worked better. That's when something interesting becomes obvious. Time zones are not natural laws. They are agreements. Human decisions layered on top of Earth's rotation, which means every time you look at your phone, you're not reading nature. You're reading one of the largest coordination systems humans ever created. But if time zones already sound strange, the next thing humanity invented made them even stranger. Because time zones decide the hour. But another invisible line decides the day. Section 4. The line that changes the date. Time zones decide the hour, but there's another invisible line that does something even stranger. It changes the day. Right now, there are places on Earth where two people can stand relatively close to each other and technically live in different dates. One person is in Monday, the other is still in Sunday. Same planet, same sun, different calendar. That sounds impossible, but it exists. And it exists because of something called the International Dateline. What makes this even stranger is that despite its dramatic name, it isn't a giant physical line in the ocean. You can't see it. There's no wall, no checkpoint, no clock tower floating in the Pacific. It's mostly a human agreement. Here's the problem humanity faced. Earth rotates continuously. As you travel east, local time keeps moving forward. As you travel west, local time keeps moving backward. Keep going far enough. And eventually something breaks. Imagine circling the entire planet without correcting the calendar. You would eventually end up with the wrong date. Humanity needed a reset point, so we invented one. An invisible line running mostly through the Pacific Ocean. Cross it one direction, you jump forward one day, cross it the other. You go backward one day. No extra sunrise, no missing night, just the calendar changes. That sounds ridiculous, because it is. You can literally experience the same calendar date twice, or skip one entirely. And humans have actually done this. There have been places that changed which side of the dateline they followed to align better with trade, business, and neighboring economies. Imagine going to sleep on one date and waking up to discover an entire day never happened. Not because Earth changed, not because astronomy changed, because humans changed the system. That's what makes time zones so strange. They feel scientific, but underneath, they're full of compromises, politics, trade, business, convenience, coordination. And once you realize that, you start noticing weird examples everywhere. Some places change clocks every year. Others never do. Some stay fixed, others move. Some experience sunlight late at night. Others spend parts of the year waking up in darkness. And despite all of that, billions of people wake up every day and trust the clock without thinking about it. Which raises one final question. If this system is already so strange, why haven't we replaced it? Section 5. Why we still use a system that makes no sense. At this point, time zones start feeling less like science and more like one giant compromise, and honestly, that's exactly what they are. Because once you realize how artificial time zones are, the obvious question becomes, why don't we replace them? After all, modern life is completely different now. We have smartphones, GPS, atomic clocks, instant communication. Your phone already knows where you are. Your meetings automatically convert time. Global businesses operate continuously. Technology solved many of the problems time zones were originally designed to fix. So why are we still using them? Because time zones were never really about measuring time. They were about coordinating people. Think about your day. You don't wake up because Earth reached a mathematically perfect position. You wake up because society agreed that morning starts around a certain time. Schools begin together. Offices open together. Flights leave together. Markets operate together. Time zones aren't trying to describe reality perfectly. They're trying to make billions of people function together. Imagine removing time zones tomorrow. Instead of saying, let's meet at 9 a.m., people might say, let's meet at 14 o'clock Universal Time. At first, that sounds efficient. Until daily life becomes strange. Your office starts at 3 o'clock. Lunch happens at 18 o'clock. Sunrise arrives at 22 o'clock. Nothing changes physically, but mentally everything feels wrong. Because humans don't experience time mathematically. We experience time socially. That's why even though global systems increasingly use shared time behind the scenes, everyday life remains local. Air traffic, space missions, international networks, scientific systems. Many already operate using universal reference time internally. But normal life still follows local clocks. People still want breakfast in the morning and sleep at night. Time zones survive because they organize human behavior, not because they perfectly reflect astronomy, and that leads to one final realization. Time feels natural, but most of the time system you live with is invented. Hours, time zones, dates, weekends, working hours, even the idea that midnight starts a new day. Most of it exists because humans collectively agreed. Which means every time you check the time, you're not reading nature. You're looking at one of the largest agreements in human history. An invisible system followed by billions of people every single day. And maybe that's the strangest part. For thousands of years, humans looked at the sky to understand time. Today, we look at our phones, and nobody questions it. If you enjoy videos that make ordinary things suddenly feel strange, subscribe. Every week we break down the hidden systems shaping the world. One final question. If humanity started over tomorrow, would we divide time the same way again? Or would we invent something completely different? See you in the next one. If this video made you look at clocks differently, subscribe. We're building a series exploring the hidden systems shaping everyday life. Countries, time, maps, cities, things nobody questions until now.